And now Jesus speaks about John. Luke 7:24 continues, and when the messengers of John were departed. Matthew 11:7, and as they departed, Jesus began to say to the multitudes concerning John. So, and as they departed, or and when the messengers of John were departed. The messengers of John, I'm definitely going to use all those words instead of they. The question now is it as they departed or when they're fully departed? They both use the word departed, but Matthew says as. Luke says when they were. Just because someone is going somewhere, they can be fully outside of your presence, even though they're not totally gone from your sight. So you could say when they were departed, meaning they at least turned and they're going. They are outside of your presence now, but they're not fully gone. So maybe when they were departed could be the best, because as they departed would mean that as they're walking away, they're going to continue to walk away until they get all the way back to John the Baptist in prison. As they departed, that is a much larger period of time than when they were departed. When they were departed, it's not saying when they got all the way back there. It's saying when they're just simply left outside of their immediate presence. So I'm going to go with when they were departed. And when, or and as. Okay, so and is in both. Now Luke only, when the messengers of John were, and then departed is in both. Luke continues, he began to speak to the people concerning John. Matthew says, Jesus began to say to the multitudes concerning John. I'm definitely going to say Jesus because that's more clear. Began to say to the multitudes concerning John, or began to speak. So began to is both. Began to say, or began to speak. To say to the multitudes, or to speak to the people. You know, I think that this is not the first thing that Jesus is saying to the multitudes. He obviously has a multitude around him. He was healing, as was mentioned earlier, healing their infirmities and their plagues and of their evil spirits. I'm paraphrasing. So obviously he's working with them. He's communicating with them. This is not him beginning to speak. But it is him beginning to debrief them concerning John the Baptist, or to mention John the Baptist to them. So I think it wouldn't fit to say that he began to speak to the people concerning John. Well, it does have the people concerning John, so I guess it doesn't really matter either way. I was going to say it makes more sense to have the word say about John than to speak, but they both have about John, so it doesn't matter. I just got to pick one or the other. And to say to the multitudes concerning John. I like the word speak more than say. I definitely like the word speak more than talk. Began to say to the people. Even though it does say in both, concerning John, the word say fits better than the word speak. When you're talking especially about a certain thing, you're beginning to say about that thing, right? Or you're beginning to speak about that thing. It's either way. I'm just going to go with say. That was the first idea that came into my mind, so I'm just going to go with that. I'll go with say. Back to orange. 2. Matthew says the multitudes. Luke says the people. I think multitudes is more descriptive, because when you're saying the people, that could be any number. It could be 2, the people. But multitudes obviously means a lot more people. So I'm going to use the word multitudes. The is both. Concerning John in Matthew. Concerning John, okay. Concerning John is both. Luke says, "What went you out into the wilderness for to see?" Matthew, "What went you out into the wilderness to see?" For to see. To see. Okay. You know, I've had a problem with this verse for a long time. Why on earth do they translate it for to see? If you're going to say into the wilderness, you could say for. But if you're going to say that, you shouldn't add the last two words, to see. It's either what did you go there for, or what did you go there to see. It's one or the other. To have both just sounds really weird. What went you out into the wilderness for to see? No, I don't like that. I'm going to stick with how it says in Matthew. Again, I'm cutting it out from Luke, but I'm not cutting it out according to Matthew, because it's the same sentence just without that word. So, unless you think that Matthew is removing from Scripture, then it's okay. So these are both what went you out into the wilderness to see. But I'll explain the addresses that I'm not including the word for. Now Matthew continues, "A reed shaken with the wind?" ? Luke, "A reed shaken with the wind?" Okay, it's the same. A reed shaken with the wind. Luke continues, "But what went you out for to see?" Matthew, "But what went you out for to see?" Oh my gosh! Great. Now I have to use it. Why doesn't he use it earlier? What went you out into the wilderness to see? Why? Why does he use it now and not earlier? What went you out for to see? And then again in verse 9, what went you out for to see? They use it there in Matthew as well. I can't believe this. What went you out for to see? What went you out for to see? Only this very first question, when he's asking them, what went you into the wilderness to see, does he not use the word for. That's it. All the rest of them both use the word for. I can't stand it, so I can't just cut it out. It's in both. I'll leave it in the rest, but I'm going to keep it out in this first one. Unbelievable. But what went you out for to see? But what went you out for to see? It's the same. But what went you out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment. A man clothed in soft raiment. It's the same. A man clothed in soft raiment. Behold, they which are gorgeously apparelled, behold, they that wear soft clothing. I think I can do both. Behold, they is in both. Behold, comma, they. And I'm going to stick with what is mentioned in Matthew first, that wear soft clothing, and then I'm going to go to Luke, which are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately, and then from both are in king's courts. Or houses. I'll say courts because the king's house is the castle. The court is where everyone gathers. That's the more important location. Matthew only. That wear soft clothing. And then Luke, which are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately. Matthew ends in are in king's houses or are in king's court. So are in kings is both. Are in kings apostrophe, and I'm going to go with courts from Luke only instead of houses. Because the court is in the house, because the house is the castle. So that's better. Luke continues, but what went you out for to see? Yet again. Matthew, but what went you out for to see? It's the same. And I really can't stand that word for, but I'll keep it. Matthew continues, a prophet, yea, I say to you, and more than a prophet. Luke says, a prophet, yea, I say to you, and much more than a prophet. And more than a prophet. Okay, so much is only in Luke, but the rest of it's the same. A prophet, yea, I say to you, and now the word much, only from Luke. From both again, more than a prophet. Now Luke continues, this is he of whom it is written, Matthew. For this is he of whom it is written. I'll put the for from Matthew only. Back to both. This is he of whom it is written. Of whom it is written. He of whom it is written. Behold, I send my messenger before your face. Behold, I send my messenger before your face. Yep, that's the same. Behold, I send my messenger before your face, which shall prepare your way before you. Which shall prepare your way before you. Yep. All the way back at the beginning in Mark, when I have the introduction of John the Baptist, I have the very first verse in Mark, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. I have that during the main intro. I used Mark 1:1 already. When I introduced John the Baptist, which is the first thing in Mark 1, I go right into preaching the baptism of repentance for the remission of sins. That's verse 4. Then I have the quote, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare you the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. It's in gray. That's where I have verse 3. So I skipped verse 2. In Mark 1:2, I skipped that because I know that this prophecy is fulfilled in him, but it's also mentioned by Jesus specifically. As is written in the prophets, behold, I send my messenger before your face, which shall prepare your way before you. He mentions this in this section that I'm working on right now, Matthew 11, and also Luke 7. But what went you out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say to you, and much more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before your face, which shall prepare your way before you. Here, Jesus himself is saying that John the Baptist is fulfilling a prophecy from Malachi. This speech is not in Mark. So the only time in Mark that it's written is only in chapter 1. But if Jesus specifically says it, I would want that to be the mention, not just a passing introduction to who John the Baptist is at the very beginning. And since that verse mentioning John fulfilling prophecy is not in the introduction to John the Baptist in Matthew or Luke, it's only here, this is where I'm going to put it. I'm not going to have it twice. This is where I'll put it. So I'm going to add this verse from Mark 1, verse 2, right here. The only thing that's different is that in this verse in Mark, it says, as it is written, instead of whom it is written. And also, these extra words in Mark, in the prophets. That's not in Matthew or Luke, but I can add that here. Here's a problem. That's actually not Jesus' words. That can't be read. This is from Mark 1. So I would have to leave that in white lettering. No, I can't put that in here because this is Jesus' speech. I can't just add in there some extra words that he's not speaking. No, I can't put that there. Alright, but I will say these words come from Mark as well. So I'll leave them in gray, even though they're not actually Jesus' words in Mark. I'll just have to leave out in the prophets. Yeah. I can't put that in there. Those are not Jesus' words. And I don't want to just interject some extra words in Jesus' own speech that are not his words.